Hey there, YouTube. Welcome to Big Mike Beard Wisdom. So, these little guys here have been growing for quite a bit. I'll put in on the screen real quick, like how long they've been growing in these pots. But I'm pretty sure I let them go a little bit too long. So, these were originally cuttings that I took off of the original plants. And basically what I had done was I had accidentally not researched enough and not watched the plants enough to see that I had some suckers really starting to go. And these were the biggest of the suckers, the ones that I thought would make it if I put them in a pot separately. And then from what I was reading, you should have them in there for about 2 weeks and then take them out and plant them like you would have planted these guys basically. So plant them in a nice big bucket. So what we're going to do today is we'll watch the video stuff that I had from the earlier parts. We'll watch the timeline stuff that I did, which wasn't super great. So if you remember when we did the 5-gallon bucket tomatoes, we used this Miracle-Gro potting mix, and I didn't use the whole bag. So I've got 2 pots that I quickly filled up real fast, just because I got done trimming a bunch of extra suckers off of some of those tomatoes. Basically what I want to do is I'm going to jab all these suckers in 3 to a pot and then add some water and see what happens. So this would essentially be like starting kind of somewhat over. But we've got those set. And then what I'm going to do is when I fill up the jug over there, I'm going to water that down. That way I've got like a soft mist hitting them as opposed to, really hammering them. To list out the variables as to why this might not work or it might not grow. This is Miracle-Gro potting mix. And then this was supposed to be for, not for potted plants, it was supposed to be for like in-ground stuff. So that might be a problem. The next thing that might be a problem would be that these are fresh cuttings and I've never grown anything from cuttings before. So these are the suckers that we just cut off. And then I don't know like how much fertilizer and stuff is in this potting mix. So it's possible this might be a little bit too much for these cuttings and may cause a problem. And I'm watering this from the backpack sprayer that I had the tenacity in. Now granted, we've gone almost a week with watering the grass with it, so it's just run straight water for about a week. That doesn't mean there isn't a little bit of stuff in there. But I'm really kind of curious to see if this winds up working. So those got a fair amount of water. I'll probably stuff them maybe right over there. See how it goes. And then they should get a similar amount of light as those in that spot for the next few days. And then I just have to remember to keep watering them to see if they wind up catching up. Here's the suckers that I took off last night. So I may wind up doing something where I do like a day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Kind of look at them just to see if they wind up growing. So I just gave them a fair amount of water over here. Day 1. So day 1, about 2 p.m. Looks like these guys are having a hard time with the heat. I don't know if I was supposed to have maybe, brought them inside or had them sheltered. But it was supposed to be about 93 degrees today. And as you can see, they're bent over pretty hard. Day 2. So these guys might be in trouble. Day 4. Day 5. Day 7. Day 10. And it almost looks like that one's got new growth. That one may too. These are still looking a little sickly, but that might be some new growth. Day 11. Day 12. Day way too long. Day 1. Day 2. Day 4. Day 5. Day 7. Day 10. Day 11. Day 12. Day probably waited too long. And then we'll fast forward to today with me putting them in buckets. Or larger pots. Instead of going in 5-gallon buckets, I had these pots kind of sitting around. And I forget where we bought them from, but I'm pretty sure they were on sale. That left me with little pots like these and these 3 pots here. So these look like they have holes in the bottom, which feed into this bottom tray. So to a degree, the 5-gallon buckets that we have for the other ones with that lower container are kind of mimicking the same thing. The only thing with these though is I won't be able to see how much the water levels dropped in these. So I'll probably wind up watering these a bit more. Plus that lower container area that could hold water isn't anywhere near as big as these guys. So it might be one of those situations where I've got to keep these watered a little bit more or keep a good eye on them. But what I'm thinking is that because it's a much smaller size, the plant's not going to grow as big as it would in a 5-gallon bucket. Everything that I've read about tomatoes so far is that you want to maximize the root system and then have as much roots as possible. So when we did the 5-gallon buckets, we didn't plant them super deep in it to give them room to grow down. But what we did do is we did bury quite a good bit of the plant. Now with these cuttings, we probably already buried it to that nice deep level. So now hopefully there'll be roots at the bottom ready to grow down. So I'm just going to plant it in these larger pots and see how it lands. Besides the pots, we're going to be using the tomato tone. I want to go in and buy in some of this Miracle-Gro compost, or made with compost garden soil. And this will probably be what's in the main part. So that garden soil for vegetables and herbs mixed with some tomato tone will be in the bottom and up the sides of these. For these, I got in about 1/3 of the garden soil. So that's probably a half a cubic foot split between all of them. And the tomato tone basically says that for new plants to mix 2 cups per cubic foot of soil. So I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to finish off the cubic foot of soil into these. And I'm only going to put in, or I only did put in, half a cup into each one. So I think I'll be able to get a full cubic foot into these. And we're going a little light on this just because I don't know how much stuff is in the Miracle-Gro. And I don't want to overwhelm the plants. So I'm going to leave it a little light. So now all I need to do is just mix this around together. And then we'll start looking at these guys to figure out who's going where. So real quick, I'm just going to squeeze the sides of this real fast. See if they won't just kind of fall out. That didn't work the way I wanted. Any roots popping out? Nope, no roots popping out yet. Okay. Plan B. Wow, you are just in there, aren't you? You can see the bit of roots already And that was in there pretty good. So doesn't look like it grew a whole lot of roots, but at least it grew some roots around here. So I'll probably wind up burying this down to about here, and then removing this limb once I get it watered. Wow, this one's way different. You can really see this one had a lot more roots going, which this one looks like it took off pretty good. It may have even grown more while it's been in there, and definitely has quite a few suckers of its own going. I'll just kind of open up the roots just a little bit and then drop her in. This one here looks to be about the same. It has a tremendous root system already kind of set up. So I think these two will be possibly ones that I keep. I'm a little worried about this little burnt edge here, and I may want to go in with one of the other ones just because they've got less burnt edges. But this one's definitely in the running for maybe the third pot. And then as I look at this pot here, I do kind of like this one, and I kind of like this one here. Both of them seem pretty tall, pretty strong. This one here looks a little bit smaller. It's got a couple of dying, dried out, maybe sunburnt limb pieces. So, and then again, that was probably my fault, because essentially you're not supposed to put these in direct sunlight. You're supposed to have them in indirect sunlight whenever you do this. So really, I should have probably found a nice shady spot for them to have sat instead of them sitting right in the sun. Come here there, big guy. So yeah, this one's about the same as the other one. So just a little baby root system going. This one's got a pretty good root system going, as does this one. So you can see this one's going pretty good. Now, I think I'm going to go with this one here as opposed to this one, just because this one here looks like it has less little problems as this one does. So this one, those top leaves kind of have almost like that smashed leaf, smashed stem effect that the main leaves have, whereas this one, I only see that on maybe one spot. This one's got it on quite a few spots. So I think we're going to wind up going with this one. And then as you can see, they're sitting there fairly deep. So I basically made a big cone in the center, and that's where these guys will be sitting. And just like the other ones, I may wind up pulling off these, so this first leaf limb, to help bury it a little bit more. The big thing with this is I'm curious if this is like this is July 2nd. I'm curious to see if it's too late in the year to be starting this. 90 days from now would put us end of July, end of August, end of September. So harvest time might be a little bit late. It might be getting into the cold phase, where I don't know how well these are going to be doing. And it'll be really interesting to see how the main plants are doing around that time. I got these pretty much set how I want them. So I've got it almost built up like a volcano around that centerpiece. That way, as I add fertilizer and stuff along the edges, it won't contact the plant and burn it later. Now, like this one here, I'll probably be trimming this leaf branch off shortly as it starts growing, but for now it's going to keep it. So these are all set. I'll do a little bit of pruning on some of the suckers they have going already, and then this will be basically starting back at square one for the 5-gallon bucket tomatoes, just with a much smaller planter. And what's kind of interesting is that it looks like the top of the planter is probably roughly the same size as the top of the 5-gallon bucket. So these are all potted in. So same thing, almost like a little mini volcano. I did add a little bit of tomato tone around the edge. So it looks kind of like a lot, but it's not. It's just to kind of like a good dragged out pinch. And it'll be interesting to see how these guys wind up going, because I'm pretty sure they're going to want to become an almost like root locked, and that the roots are going to grow out, hit the end of the pot and stuff like that, and kind of form to it, kind of like what we saw with the bigger ones that have done a little bit better. But these, being that they were already in one of these pots, don't really need a whole lot of trimming. So like this one here, I'll probably nip this end off, just because it looks like as this is dying, it's not dying and stopping the drying of the plant. So I'll probably nip this one, nip this off, let these little flowers or these little leaves here grow. Let this be the main stem, and then as it continues to grow, I may wind up snipping this one off here, because it is really close to the soil. Same thing with these over here. So this dying off area and stuff, I'm going to try and nip that off. That way it still has some leaves. I'll nip this one off here, and then hopefully this continues to grow. And same thing with this one. So it looks like if you get something where this is starting to die off, it looks like it's almost like an uncontrollable drying out of the plant. So I'll nip it there, hopefully put a stop to it. I'll nip it maybe about there, hopefully put a stop to that as well. And then hopefully this will continue to grow. As it grows up higher, eventually we'll end up taking this section here off. That one will already be gone. So to get a good foot worth of like clearance on it. It does have some little baby flower buds though, which does kind of complicate. A lot of people say, you know, trim it up to the first set of flowers. I don't know if I'll wind up doing that or not, but who knows? Plus, I don't know how much these are going to grow. And then, as far as staking them, from these plants here, this one's mainly using the center red one. I do need to kind of tie it back to help get it trained back a little bit more again. This one's going to be tied to this one, now that it's grown out far enough. This one over here is getting ignored, so this one's going to get transplanted to be friends with these guys. And then this rear one here is going to get transplanted too, to be friends with this one. And then I think this one here can come out and be friends with this one. So I think it's growing this way, so I'm going to set it over here. Alright, so those are all in pretty straight. Now, from what I've been reading about the gardening stuff, it's one of those things where maybe I didn't want to do that. So now everything that was weird in these pots has now been introduced into these pots that might not have had any weird stuff in them. So I might have introduced bacteria, fungi, you know, who knows. But we'll see how this goes. These are more of an experiment type thing anyway. But these will be the ones I tie up. I think this will be the permanent spot for these little guys. I do need to brace that shelf though, because I think that shelf's not overly strong. And we'll see how these go. I'm expecting these to at least grow a little bit, maybe a couple feet. These little ones in the pots, I'd be interested to see how big they grow, just because they're pretty little. Those are like a medium size, and then of course the 5-gallon buckets. Everyone's pretty much mulched, trimmed, and sprayed with a little bit of copper fungicide just to give it the best chance. We got a little bit of water. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like and subscribe. I'll check you guys next time. Oh, it's gonna be one of those situations where I thought 2 plants were bad enough. Now I've got oh crap. Alright. 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 5 gallon. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. It should be just a quick one.